Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Non-Strategic Planning Committee on the 5th of February. I will start with item 1, apologies for absence and notifications of substitute members. Could I start by asking Democratic Services if there are any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies from Councillor Muna Carley, Councillor Nicholas Humphreys, Councillor Christine Ware, and Councillor Zoe Smith is in attendance for the Labour Group as a substitute. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Do any members of the committee have any declarations of interest in any of the items under consideration at this meeting? For which I am speaking in item 11, so I will be retiring to the gallery during that. Any further declarations? No? Okay. Item 3, minutes. Do we confirm the minutes of the meeting of the committee held on the 8th of January 2026 as a correct record? Yep. Okay. Item 4, Chair's announcements. In order to maximise the efficiency of this evening's meeting, agenda items 11 and 12 will be moved to the front of the agenda. Members of the public are permitted to film, broadcast and report on the meeting, subject to the efficient running of the meeting not being affected. Only those people who have registered in line with the committee's speaking procedure may address the committee. Members of the public are requested not to call out during the committee's discussions on any items. Anybody who repeatedly disrupts the meeting will be asked to leave. All speakers will have 5 minutes in which to make their statements, except where Chair's discretion has been applied, and are asked to remain seated after they have addressed the committee to answer any questions the committee may have. This meeting is being webcast on the Council's corporate YouTube channel. Therefore, when speaking, please speak clearly and concisely into the microphone. There are no planned fire drills, so if the alarm does sound, evacuation instructions will be given by the Democratic Services. Please ensure that any devices are switched off or on silent mode. For the benefit of the public watching remotely, I will now introduce the top table, starting at my furthest right.
Good afternoon, Chair. My name's Sian Webb. I'm the Principal Lawyer of Planning and Highways. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Richard Woods, Democratic Services Officer for the Council.
I'm Councillor John East, which is Chair of the Planning Committee.
Simon Ellis, Head of Development Management. Chris Bates, Principal Planning Officer.
Nathan Lau, Team Leader within Development Management for the South area.
Thank you. Item 5, proposed pre-committee site visits. There are no proposed pre-committee site visits ahead of the next meeting on the 19th of February. Okay, so I will now hand over to the Vice Chair to introduce item 11.
Thank you for that. My name's Adrian Cartwright. I'm stepping in as chair for this item. So Claret Car Park, Edgar Mobbs Way. I'll hand over to Case Officer Chris to begin the presentation, please.
Thank you, Chair. Application at Claret Car Park, Egmont Way, Northampton. The application owns the number of units proposed, is a major development, and therefore must be reported at the Planning Committee under the Constitution. Shown on the screen is a site location plan outlined in red. Again, shown in red, the site is currently used as a car park under the ownership of WNC, and it's used on match days for both Northampton Saints and Northampton Town Football Club. It's located also within Northampton Waterside Enterprise Zone, which is a well-established employment area. It also forms part of a wide area used for car parking, as shown to the west and the north. Shown on screen, again in the red site location, it must be noted that although it falls in the enterprise zone, it's not a safeguarded employment area. The extract shown on screen is taken from the Northampton Local Plan Policies Map. The site layout as shown on the screen details the arrangement of the modular structures. The completed development includes appropriate parking, including accessible parking, an office for security and the staff members, a laundrette, a community hub, a children's play area, buggy cycle stores and a refuge store. Appropriate landscaping and boundary treatment around the perimeter is also proposed. The site is able to accommodate a fire tender and a refuge truck with relevant consultees agreeing this approach. Shown on the screen are the typical elevations of the modular buildings. On screen is typical two-bed unit, and this shall be presented with two units stacked on top of one another. Here on the screen we have typical floor plans for a one-bed unit and a two-bed unit. Here are some site visualizations. As you can see on the right-hand side is the view upon the approach along Egdon Mobbs Way. And again, here's some more sites. Here's some more views from in the site. Inclusion officer recommendation is to approve the application subject to the conditions set out in the committee report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Councillors, anyone have any questions for the officer? Okay, thank you. In that case, we're going to have some public speakers. Altine Elias, on behalf of the local property owner. I probably pronounced that wrong, have I?
Chair, members of the Planning Committee, thank you for the opportunity to address you in respect of this application. My name's Altine Elias. I'm a chartered surveyor with over 37 years of experience in town planning work. I represent the owner of Waterside House, being the building which is located adjacent to this site and is occupied by Helaman Titan. And I'm speaking to you today to urge you to refuse consent for this application. I'd like to take members back to 2016 when permission was granted for a high quality building for Helaman Titan to occupy. Your officer's report at the time confirmed the proposal was in accordance with the aims and objectives of the council, and I quote, to promote the Northampton Waterside Enterprise Zone for business use and contribute towards the provision of jobs in Northampton. Our client and Helaman Titan, who are also here to speak in objection to this proposal, fully bought into this vision and believed they would be committing to a high-quality employment and business location. A bespoke industrial facility costing in the region of £4 million was duly built and now accommodates 117 employees. To date, the company has contributed over £500,000 in business rates to the council. They are a significant local employer and their needs as a business should be supported and great weight placed on their concerns. 10 years down the line, and the council appear to have abandoned the aspirations which led both our client and Helaman Titan to choose this location for their new business facility. And consent is being sought for what in effect is a container park providing poor quality living accommodation on a premium site within the designated enterprise zone. We have numerous concerns with this proposal and the speed with which it's being processed. The proposal will result in the loss of high-quality employment land at a time when the council's own economic needs assessment confirms a shortage of such land within the borough, and this type of loss should be resisted. Indeed, the council's own enterprise zone delivery strategy, which supports the emerging local plan, confirms that this site is designated as a key priority site for the provision of high-quality industrial space. No evidence has been provided, as required by Local Plan Policy EC1, that the existing employment use of this application site is no longer viable. The proposed use, which has been badged as sui generis, is in fact clearly a residential use. And whilst the proposal is presented as a temporary use, consent is being sought for a period of 10 years. This is in effect a full and permanent use of this wholly inappropriate site for long-term housing accommodation. Of even greater concern is the impact of the housing use on our clients and the businesses nearby. Paragraph 198 of the NPPF confirms that existing businesses should not have unreasonable restrictions placed on them as a result of development permitted after they were established. This application, if allowed, will do exactly that. Pelham and Titan have consent to operate 24/7, 365 days a year, as do Reeford's Transport, who are located opposite, and Veolia just to the south. All of the companies undertake work between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. when background noise is at its quietest. This flexibility was a key driver in Pelham and Titan choosing this location, and as part of their regular business practices, the company undertakes a variety of noisy activities which are likely to generate complaints from residents living next door. Members should be aware that those living in the closest containers will be less than 8 metres from the company's service yard. Complaints from residents, which the council are duty-bound to consider, risk the company and others nearby being unable to undertake their lawful business as a result of the proposal to introduce residential development into this employment area. For the reasons listed above, we would urge members to support this well-established and successful local employer and refuse consent for this wholly inappropriate scheme. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any of the members have any questions for the speaker? Councillor Breeze.
Thank you. You refer to the activity of your client and neighbours. What is the nature of the noise disturbance that might give rise to complaints?
But Pelham and Titan are about to speak, and they're going to go through some of those issues. But they test sprinklers. They move within the service yard. It's general business activity, particularly movements within the service yard that we.
Okay, I'll save it for the next speaker. Thank you.
Cause concern.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next speaker, Tony Crisp, please, on behalf of local businesses. When you're ready, so just press the centre button near you, that'll turn the microphone on.
Chair, members of the Planning Committee, thank you for the opportunity to address you in respect of this application. My name is Tony Crisp and I am the Financial Controller for Pelham and Titan Data Limited, the company which occupies the adjacent site to this proposal. And I am speaking today to urge you to refuse consent for this application. Back in 2016, we were coming to the end of our lease and commenced a search for bespoke premises in a location commensurate with our culture and our ideals. We visited numerous sites in Northamptonshire and beyond and decided to relocate to within the Northampton Waterprise Enterprise Zone due to its declared aims and objectives of supporting the high performance technological sector and to contribute towards the provision of jobs in Northampton. Since 2017, we have invested approximately £3.3 million in our site, contributed approximately £500,000 in business rates, employ 117 people, leased additional premises on the Pineham Industrial Estate, and are the UK's #1 infrastructure supplier. 7 years ago, our concerns regarding the changing emphasis of the enterprise zone were ignored when the council approved the construction of a waste recycling facility adjacent to our eastern boundary. And now this proposal bordering our western boundary, we feel, again ignores the council's original philosophy for the enterprise zone. Of even greater concern is the impact of housing on this site will have on our business. Paragraph 198 of the National Planning Policy Framework confirms that existing businesses should not have unreasonable restrictions placed on them as a result of the development permitted after they were established. This application, if allowed, will do exactly that. We have consent to operate 24/7, 365 days a year, as do Reeford's Transport, who are located opposite, and Veolia just to the south. All of the companies undertake work between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. when background noise is at its quietest. This flexibility, was a key driver in Hallam and Tighton choosing this location, and as part of our regular business practices, the company undertakes a variety of noisy business activities which are likely to generate complaints from residents living next door. Members should be aware that those living in the closest containers will be less than 8 metres from the service yard of the company. Complaints from residents, which the council are duty-bound to consider, risk the company and others nearby being able to undertake their lawful business as a result of this proposal to introduce residential development into this employment area, and ultimately could jeopardise further investment in the Northamptonshire area. For these reasons listed above, we would urge members to support a well-established and successful local employer and refuse consent for this wholly inappropriate scheme. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crisp. Any members have any questions? Councillor Breeze?
Yeah, thank you. I'll repeat my question to the last speaker about the sort of the nature of the noises that will be between late at night.
Intermittently, we have to, which is every 2 or 3 days, we have to test the sprinkler system. So that's a massive pump, diesel pump that goes off. We have to test the sprinkler alarms. We have to test the burglar alarms, etc. On regular occasions. Also, our normal day-to-day work is articulated lorries coming in and forklift trucks flying around, driving around the yard. So, and loading the articulated lorries. So that's a bit of crash, bang, wallop every so often, shall we say.
And does much of the lorry activity take place at night? During the day?
It can do.
It can do.
Most of the time it is up to about 6 o'clock, but sometimes it can, if we have a urgent delivery or whatever, yes, it can do.
But you're a business that operates 24 hours a day?
Sorry?
You're a business that operates 24 hours a day?
We operate, our official hours are 8:30 till 4:30. I'm never there at 4:30, it has to be said. And as I say, if there's a late delivery, then yes, people stay behind and load up and yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Crisp.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Councillor East, please.
So I'm, as the ward councillor, I'm objecting to the proposed development of the 70 modular accommodation units at the Claret car park sites. While the need for temporary housing is recognised, the location is fundamentally unsuitable for the reasons outlined as follows. Conflict with policy EC1, safeguarding of employment sites. The proposal directly contravenes policy EC1 of the Northampton Local Plan Part 2, which seeks to safeguard existing sites and the enterprise zone for employment use, such as offices, general industry and warehousing. There is a lack of evidence. Policy EC1 requires a minimum of 12 months of active marketing to prove the site is no longer viable for employment use before a change to non-employment use is supported. The applicant has failed to provide this evidence. Strategic misalignments. This site is within the Northampton Waterside Enterprise Zone, introducing a sui generis residential use in an unconventional Peacefield development that contradicts the prevailing industrial and commercial characteristics of the zone. Loss of critical public parking infrastructure. Development would result in the loss of approximately 250 to 300 parking spaces at the Claret car park. This would have an impact on the local stadiums. This car park is a vital resource for the spectators attending matches for the nearby Sixfields and Franklin Garden stadiums. Its amenity loss. The removal of this infrastructure directly reduces the public amenity available to those supporting local sports and leisure, which are central to the area's identity and economy. There will also be traffic displacements, an impact on residential areas. The loss of on-site parking will inevitably lead to significant traffic and parking stress in surrounding residential neighbourhoods. There'll be a residential overspill. Removing hundreds of spaces will divert matchday traffic into the residential streets of St James and Upton. These areas already suffer from parking stress. Further displacement will exacerbate congestion and negatively impact the quality of life for the local residents. Highway safety and pollution. The concentration of traffic along Edgar Mobbs Way during peak periods and subsequent diversion into narrow residential roads increases the risk of highway safety and elevate noise and air pollution for the current and future residents. Sustainability of the site location. The proposed development represents an incompatible land use. The agent of change principle should be applied here, as the 24-hour industrial operations to the east would likely face future operational constraints due to noise and light complaints from new residents. Additionally, the proposal fails to account for cumulative impact of traffic-related pollution. Given the site's encapsulation by the stadium parking to the north and west, residents would be exposed to significant peaks in nitrous dioxide and particulate matter. The loss of residential amenity cannot be sufficiently mitigated in such high-intensity industrial leisure-focused transport corridor. Conclusion is that the proposed development fails to meet the requirements of policy EC1 and provides no adequate mitigation for loss of essential parking infrastructure. The resulting displacement of traffic into residential areas is an unacceptable burden on the local community. The development also represents incompatible land use. The site is bordered by 24-hour industrial premises, exposing residents to round-the-clock noise, light and air pollution. I urge the committee to refuse this application and seek more appropriate sites for temporary housing that do not compromise the strategic employment goals of the amenity of existing residents.
Thank you. Do any members have any questions? Thank you, Councillor Reid. Next speaker will be Councillor Hastie, a Cabinet Member for Houses, please. Sorry, Councillor Hastie.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. I'm here to basically outline why we're looking to do this from a housing point of view. And by your leave, Chair, if you want, I can repeat this for item 12, agenda 12, or I can just do this. It's the same argument or case for both 11 and 12.
Yeah, so you'll have to say it on the next item as well.
Okay. Right. So the council has a statutory duty to provide temporary accommodation to households that become homeless. This duty includes prevention support to avoid homelessness, relief support while homelessness applications are assessed, and support to secure longer-term accommodation. In the private rented sector or through social housing is the normal way through, but this is commonly referred to as the main housing duty. During consultation, concerns were raised that the proposed accommodation could be used for asylum seekers. The council can confirm that this is not the case. The accommodation is intended solely for households who have a legal right to remain in the UK and are eligible for public funds. Asylum seekers are accommodated separately by the Home Office and are not eligible for this provision. As of early February 2026, West Northamptonshire Council is providing temporary accommodation to 747 households. Of these, 316 households are accommodated in properties owned or leased directly by the council. 314 households are placed in self-contained accommodation procured on a nightly paid basis, and 111 households are accommodated in HMO-style nightly paid accommodation, and 6 households are placed in hotel or bed and breakfast accommodation. So that means 431 households are in accommodation that the council does not own. The council is currently managing the impacts of the Renters' Rights Act, which represents a once-in-a-generation reform of the private rented sector. While intended to improve tenant security, the legislation has introduced uncertainty into the market. Many landlords are reassessing their position, with some choosing to exit the sector. Changes to eviction processes and the removal of so-called no-fault evictions have reduced the supply of private rented accommodation available to local authorities. In response, the council has developed a new accommodation model that brings forward a high-quality, directly owned and managed temporary accommodation. This model ensures that the households experiencing homelessness are provided with a safe, secure and stable environment while receiving structured support to move back into private or social rented housing. Through focused work across housing and community services, supported by specialist teams across the council, the average length of stay in nightly paid accommodation has been reduced to 116 days, down from 134 days in April 2025. This reduction reflects improved case management and more effective move-on support. It is this cohort of households that the proposed accommodation is intended to serve. The development includes provision for an on-site office and community room, enabling support services to be delivered directly on-site, additional facilities to include an on-site laundrette, a small children's play area, and the proposed extension of the council's partnership with Voi, including an on-site electric scooter provision to improve access to services and employment. Turning to the accommodation itself, the units are purpose-built for West Northamptonshire Council and provide fully self-contained living accommodation, each with its own living space, kitchen, bathroom and bedroom. The design ensures the accommodation is safe, secure and suitable for households experiencing the crisis of homelessness while maintaining dignity and stability during what is a temporary period of need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any members have any questions? Councillor Smith, please.
Thank you. Are you able to let me know what safeguarding measures will be in place, particularly for children living in this accommodation when they're living exclusively around other complex vulnerabilities of a wide variety within that setting, and what will be done to ensure that families don't experience a stigmatising or social exclusion as a result of children living in this style of accommodation?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Smith. The on-site management, the CCTV and also the general security placed around the site is designed to safeguard the children's and also the residents. We're confident that will provide enough safeguarding for families and children. With regards to stigmatisation and general perception, I think as you will see from the examples of the diagrams, and it has been referred to as porta cabins stacked one on top of each other, I'd like to re-emphasise that these are not porta cabins. These are purpose-built units with a proper living space, proper bedroom and a kitchen space. I think they blend in reasonably well. We realise that it's an unusual solution to a very urgent problem that the council and UK-wide have. So I think stigmatisation, I genuinely don't believe will be an issue. I think it provides a small community type environment for people who are in real need, and also it's not a long-term solution for the individual households. It's, as I say, it's looking at about 120 days maximum. The idea is to move them on as quickly as possible into alternative accommodation. But it is a better solution than having either B&B type accommodation, hotel accommodation, or private sector accommodation, which is a massive burden on the council's finances.
Thank you. Councillor Breeze.
Thank you. Much is made in the report about Voi being providing, I presume it's
Scooters.
Scooters. Scooters are fine, perhaps for a certain cohort of the population, but not very fine for people who aren't confident on scooters, particularly electric scooters. You've got to have a driver's license, I think, don't you, to provide
I
that
believe so, yeah.
age verification and some sort of competency. So actually, it's going to be a fairly limited cohort who are going to have access to that. Otherwise, nearest public transport is 1.5 miles away, which is actually quite a walk. Day like today, it's pretty tough. So accessibility is a concern of mine in terms of activities for the residents. The other concern I have is what the council's response will be when the inevitable noise complaints come in about the activities of businesses. And I know that particularly beeping from reversing lorries, forklifts carries a long way a long, long way, particularly at night. And so how you're going to manage that? Because I think to sacrifice good, viable economic activity in this area will be a huge mistake.
Yes, I think it's fair to say we can consider other options other than VoIP. We can certainly look at that. The idea is for people who are mainly for working rather than certainly any recreational aspect of it, or should we say, it's more for a shopping or it's not really a means of permanent transport. The idea is to provide an additional form of transportation from there. We are more than happy to look at other suggestions. Yes, it is a bit of a walk, but it's also the same that a lot of the accommodation that we're looking at the moment does have similar constraints in terms of public transport. The most important thing I would say is the overriding need to find them some stability, decent, secure, warm, proper accommodation. It is a temporary solution. I think with the noise survey that's been undertaken, the units have been designed to a high standard. Again, I re-emphasize these are purpose-built. These are not converted porter cabins with just a bit of carpet put in them or anything like that. They're purpose-built for the intention of their use.
But they will therefore have opening windows, and a noise will carry at night through an open window.
Yes, I think there is an element of noise. I think there is an element of noise in probably most cities. If you look at transport, if you look at living in London or next to a railway line, I think those things we've tried to consider them. I think it's fair to say that the accommodation needs come first. It's not saying for a second that we're not cognizant of the idea of the noise, but the windows, for instance, in these units, I haven't stayed in one yet. My intention is to try and stay in one, but I know from officers who've been up there that the type of accommodation, it's just the public perception of these is of once again, it's kind of almost like stackable porter cabins. It is not. For instance, the ventilation systems in here would allow the windows not to be open to have ventilation. Yes, in summer it's going to be warmer, but they're not, again, metal boxes that are going to get superheated or super cold. I mean, they are purpose built for this type of accommodation.
But you've also just said that accommodation is a priority, so that would be a priority over viable businesses and business needs if there was a complaint.
I wouldn't say that. I would say accommodation would be a priority from a point of view of housing and communities. It's certainly not the intention of any officer or council to jeopardise any businesses. This is how would I say? It's a consideration, but I honestly, from all the time I've spoken with officers on this whole project, there isn't I haven't been reported of any threat to the ongoing businesses, and we would totally support those businesses.
Thank you.
I'm treading carefully on that one.
If you don't mind me asking, how long is the temporary accommodation actually temporary? As in how many years, or?
Are you talking about how long these things are going to be there, or how long the people?
Sorry.
Well, the permission would be for 10 years. I certainly hope in my tenure that we would have achieved an awful lot towards finding better solutions than this. I'm not suggesting this is the ideal solution. I think that they are purpose-built. It is not the idea that these will be there forever. That's very much what the design, and the idea also being relocatable is as demand changes. If we find in 5 years' time we've managed to fulfill some of the massive burden we've got of temporary accommodation, they can be relocated, sold, moved on, or so the idea is they will not become a permanent fixture on the scenery.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? In that case, thank you, Councillor Hasty. Next speaker will be Michael O'Connell.
Thank you, Chair.
Agent for the applicant.
Okay. Good evening, Chair, members of the Planning Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. My name is Michael O'Connell. I'm from Frampton Town Planning, and I'm here to express my support for the proposed development on behalf of the Council as applicant. The Council has a legal duty to help those who are homeless or at risk of homeless within 8 weeks, and has identified the critical shortage of temporary housing exacerbated by rising rents and no-fault evictions. Within this context, this project presents a significant step towards addressing the pressing issue of homelessness within West Northamptonshire and to reduce current reliance on accommodating people in hotel, B&B accommodation, which is expensive and not fit for family life. The development of 70 relocatable modular accommodation units, along with essential facilities such as community hub, laundry, site office, children's play area and supporting infrastructure, is considered a thoughtful and innovative solution to meet the urgent housing needs of vulnerable individuals and families. The proposal also offers a cost-effective and efficient way to provide safe, self-contained and dignified accommodation for those in need. The modular units are relocatable and designed to be robust, meet building regulation standards, and fully equipped for day-to-day living, ensuring comfort, safety for residents during their short stay of 3 to 6 months. The site itself is well situated within the urban area of Northampton, with good access to public transport, local amenities and employment opportunities. While concerns have been raised about the site's location within Northampton Waterside Enterprise Zone, it is important to note that the site is not allocated for specifically safeguarded for employment uses. The Council's Environmental Protection Team has also confirmed that they are satisfied that the potential noise and air quality impact from road traffic and adjacent industrial uses will not be detrimental to future residents. Furthermore, the temporary nature of the development ensures that the land can be restored to its original use after 10 years. As the case offer has summarised, the proposal has been carefully assessed against relevant planning policies, including National Planning Policy Framework and the West Northamptonshire Joint Core Strategy. It aligns with the principles of sustainable development, prioritising the use of previously developed land and addressing social, economic challenges in the area. We accept a request to produce an access management plan to ensure future residents of the scheme, plus visitors, staff and emergency services can safely access the site on those occasions when Edgar Mobbs Way is subject to traffic management restrictions during Northampton Saint home matches. My client is similarly willing to accept the use of a grampian condition to ensure adequate capacity in the local foul water network to address Anglian Water's objection, and a condition to ensure provision of e-bike hire or bicycle sharing scheme for use of future residents. In conclusion, this development is a vital response to a growing social issue, providing much needed temporary housing for those facing homelessness. It balances the need for immediate action with long-term planning considerations, ensuring minimal impact on the surrounding area while delivering significant social benefits. The proposed scheme also makes better use of public funds to provide decent accommodation and council-owned land, and a model that other authorities are turning to help tackle what is a national housing crisis. I therefore welcome the case officer's recommendation to the committee and urge members to approve this application and support West Northamptonshire Council in its efforts to address homelessness and improve the lives of its residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr O'Connell. Do any members have any questions? Councillor Breeze is raring to go.
It's been touched on at the Renters Reform Act. What sort of tenancies will be offered to these occupiers? And I'm not familiar with the Renters Reform Act, but I presume it's something that you do know about, that stops them becoming permanent residents. Is there something to carve out for us?
Yeah, my understanding is it's not that they will enter in a formal rental contract. They're in there on a temporary basis for 3 to 6 months. So I think there is a contract, but not the kind of contract that you're referring to. So they will not be there in any permanent basis. Yeah.
Actually, maybe something that the lawyer can address in due course.
Yeah, firstly, the tenancy of these accommodations is not a planning concern. Secondly, it is a housing concern, so without some research, I would have to look into it. But if the agent is saying that the type of tenancy he is, or the developer is proposing to make with anybody coming to these accommodation units, stop them being permanent, that would be, but it's not a planning consideration that we need to consider ourselves this evening, unless the agent can assist me further. Thank you.
No, only to add, that is correct. There won't be, it's not a permanent tenancy agreement for their stay in this accommodation. If it's a good chair, if I could just come back to the same councillor and just one of the points that was raised previously with regards noise impacts, as is evidenced in the officer's report, as part of the application process, we did, in support of the application, we did do noise assessments as well, and went back and did additional assessments following comments from the environmental health officers within the council. And that work concluded that the accommodation would be satisfactory in that location. And these surveys were undertaken during the week and over the evening period as well, with some specific additional survey work done during match days when the adjacent car park was operating and there was additional traffic on Edgar Mobbs Way. So that was just to reassure you on that point.
Thank you. Any more questions from the committee? Thank you, Mr. O'Connell.
Okay. Thank you.
Officers, is there anything you'd like to come back on that's been mentioned by the speakers?
No, Chair.
Okay, open the floor to the debate then, please, committee. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I've listened to the arguments and the discussions from all of the speakers and recognise what Councillor Hasty mentioned in terms of the safeguarding, but for me, I continue to have concerns about the residential amenity of this development, both for people living in the area and for the surrounding areas. I feel that the nature of the units being proposed, their proximity to local businesses, the area in which potentially families in particular could find themselves, some of the concerns around transport links, particularly for younger children trying to access schools. I feel that the residential and the proximity of a collective housing of vulnerable people would have a negative impact on the residential amenity of the residents of the area as well, and for those neighbouring businesses. And for me, those concerns would continue to be prominent and would make me minded to refuse the applications on the grounds of the suitability of the location and the residential amenity.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Anyone else? Councillor Frost, yeah.
Question for the Sean. Following on from that, the impact on residential amenity. There aren't many people. It's very loud, isn't it? There aren't many people anywhere near. Are there? How would that work from a planning perspective? I mean, that's an incredibly important argument if there's people next door. But I'm looking on Google Earth at the moment. There isn't anyone anywhere near, as far as I can tell.
I understand the concern that Councillor Smith has is that there is employment sites near to what would be residential amenity. And I think that is your concern, Councillor Smith. Please correct me if I'm incorrect.
Yeah, in this case, the residential amenity of the people living in these units rather than neighbouring properties.
Thank you, councillor Smith, for clarifying.
Yeah, okay, yeah, thank you. Councillor Breeze?
Thank you. I too am incredibly torn because I absolutely identify with councillor Smith's. I'm concerned about the residential amenity in relation to transport, accessibility, children's schools, for all sorts of reasons, and also from the amenity of the businesses. And I think that's very difficult. But on the flip side, we also have, as we heard, 700 odd families in temporary accommodation.
Yeah, this
And-
is for temporary accommodation,
And it is
so
for
it's
temporary
not full-time
accommodation, no.
residential.
So for temporary accommodation, and so I really haven't made my mind up, but I'm going to have to, because there is a great conflict, and I can see why it's an unbalanced decision.
Yes, indeed.
It's a tricky one.
Anyone else have any comments to make? Councillor Beryl?
I completely understand the difficulties that the WNC have. And I agree with the fellow councillors. For me, it's a location issue. That's where I am, in all honesty. It's smack bang in the middle of an industrial commercial estate. I don't know how anyone else feels about that. I'm not too sure.
Thank you. There is a bus stop just outside the site, isn't there? And it's paved all the way along.
Yes, there's bus stops on Egmos Way. There's bus stops as well along the other roads. I mean, it's in walking distance of the kind of local kind of shopping and retail kind of enterprises nearby. Yeah. So and it's still not too long walk to the actual town centre as well. So yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's in a sustainable location. Yes, whilst it's not surrounded by kind of additional residential use, it's obviously in a location where obviously the applicant felt it was a kind of suitable location.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor?
I'd just carry on the debate really. I would suggest what we're looking at here is the least worst option. None of us are, I can't believe, are comfortable with think this is going to be the most amazing place to live. Of course it's not. But what is the alternative? I don't think that there's many alternative sites. The current situation is hardly ideal, to put it mildly. I personally could be persuaded on the balance that it's far from ideal. But if we're concerned about the welfare of the people that would be staying there, I can't believe that the current situation is great. So I'd be convinced on like I said, the least worst option. Personally, what does everyone else think?
Thank you, Councillor Frost. Councillor Rainbow?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. Remember, it's only accommodation for 3 to 6 months per occupier. So it's not like they're dealing with the environment, if you like, for a long period. And again, it's only temporary accommodation for 10 years at the most, and hopefully before it reached that 10-year, obviously they can be moved. And like you said, Councillor Frost, it's definitely not ideal situation, but then is it the worst situation? Again, put it out there.
Thank you. Councillor Frost?
If it helps, Chair, to move things forward, I'd be happy to propose we go with officer's advice to move things forward. Nothing else to gauge the room.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for the proposal?
Yeah, I'll second
Councillor
the
Rainbow,
proposal.
thank you. In that case, ask Democratic Services just to summarise the proposal.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair. It's proposed by Councillor Frost and seconded by Councillor Rainbird that the officer's recommendation be approved, subject to the conditions set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. All those in favour? All those against? Abstentions? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Councillor East.
Okay, we now move on to item 12, which is the land at the former Lings Upper School, Binningbrook Road, Northampton. I'll now hand over to case officer Andrew Hoden, to begin the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's a similar proposal to the previous item. As you see, this is for 38 rather than 60 units. These would all be 2-bedroom units. There's no single 1-bedroom units on this site. I'll click it. There we are. Right, this shows you the outline of the site in red there. This is an aerial view, so you get a bit of a context. So this site this is obviously the site here. It's located very close to the Western Fables shopping centre, which is here. There's other leisure uses around here. There's the Lings Leisure Centre there. There's also traditional housing to the north there. There's also some public open space just here. So similar proposal, different sort of site. This is much more residential site. This was an allocated housing site, which hasn't been developed. So there's no sort of policy conflict in this case. Site, as well as the 38 2-bedroom units, it includes community hub, laundry, children's play area, and on-site parking provision. I'll take you through to the site location plan there. The children's play area is in this area here. Got the laundry down this area here. Car parking in the centre. Access is from this area here. So this is an existing access. This was the access to the school when it was a school that was in use. This access will be used. It would be improved from previous position. There were some initial concerns about this access being suitable. That has now been all agreed with the Council Highways Department, who are quite happy that this access is suitable. As far as the appearance of it, I mean, it is obviously similar, you know, it is not traditional form of design of housing. If I take you through to the, similar units, as I say, to what was in the last proposal. There is one of the typical units. You can see they're all 2-bedroom units. It's got 2 bedrooms, living area, bathroom area, kitchen. This is what they would look like stacked onto 2 high. They've got an access stairway in between each sort of pair. And this sort of appearance here. This is the site as it exists now. It's a vacant school site. It's been vacant for over 10 years, become overgrown. So this would be, I would say, a visual improvement to an empty site. And because of the character of the area, it does have a lot of large buildings, so it's not really going to look out of place. I think that's all I need to say for now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee for the officers? Councillor Rainbird. Oh, sorry, Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Just picking up on the fire comments raised, or the comment raised by the fire and rescue team. I recognise that they've commented rather than objected, and they've talked about the requiring of fire hydrants, but it is concerning me that they've said it's unclear whether a fire appliance could enter the site. And for me, I'm just thinking about the fairly densely packed nature of these units and the situation in which it's at. And I would just like a little more of an idea what the fire safety plan is if we're saying that we're not sure if fire appliances are going to be able to access this site.
Thank you, Councillor, through you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, the fire safety officer comment was that, yes, she had concerns, but that was overcome by the requirement to have fire hydrants on the site. So they're happy that that would be acceptable in that form because of the fire hydrants being there. There's a condition that says they must be provided.
Councillor Greenwood.
Is this again temporary, and if so, how long again would the temporary, and is it 10 years again?
Sorry, it's a temporary permission for 10 years is what is sought. And as with the previous iteration of this, it would be nobody would be living there for 10 years. There would be a constant movement of people for a short term during that time.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the committee? No, okay. We'll now move on to the public speaking in the following order. So we've got Rebecca Redden on behalf of Northampton Academy. This is a remote.
It's actually going to be Owen Jones. I'm not sure why it said Rebecca there. Rebecca does work at Northampton Academy, but it's actually going to be me.
Okay, do apologise.
That's okay, no worries. Can I start?
Certainly.
Excellent. So, Chair and members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to speak today. Sorry I can't be there in person. My name is Owen Jones. I am the principal of Northampton Academy, a school serving just over 1,700 students aged 11 to 18. The school, I just saw the plans a minute ago, just thought it'd be interesting to mention that although Western Fable Shopping Centre was mentioned, I'm not sure why Northampton Academy wasn't mentioned as a school literally right next to the proposed development. So I'll do that on their behalf. I'm here to represent our students, our staff, our families, and the wider community. I want to be absolutely clear from the outset, this is not a minor neighbour issue, it is a safeguarding issue. And safeguarding, as members will appreciate, must always be given the highest possible regard when a development directly affects a school. So safeguarding concerns, as I said, Northampton Academy is responsible for the safeguarding of over 1,700 young people, many of whom are under 16, with a significant number in years 7 to 9 who are just 11 to 13 years old. Their safety, well-being and protection are our legal and moral duties. The proposed development fails to demonstrate that it has adequately assessed, understood or mitigated safeguarding implications for our students. In our meetings with the development team, twice we received no satisfactory responses to our safeguarding concerns. On several issues, we received no response at all. This includes increased public access and visibility onto the school site, potential new pedestrian and vehicle desire lines across student routes, lack of clarity about boundary treatments, surveillance sightlines and security risks, and no meaningful safeguarding risk assessment involving the school. The proposed development has direct line of sight of our school playground. With the tree line being reduced significantly, our suggestion of a fence was given no consideration. The applicants within the planning committee report have referred to us as a college, suggesting an assumption that our students are 16 to 18 years old, rather than children aged 11 to 18. This fundamental misunderstanding raises serious questions about the assumptions underpinning their planning application. Pedestrian safety. Birds Hill Walk is a narrow, poorly maintained road with adjoining narrow footway. This does not adequately address how pedestrian movements will be safely managed, particularly during peak school hours, raising serious concerns for vulnerable users, including children. Procedural concerns. We submitted our letter of objection on the 3rd of October 2025. It was redacted on the 17th of October, but did not appear on the public website until the 22nd of January 2026, more than 3 months later. We raised this on several occasions, but our requests were ignored. This delay limited the community's ability to see consider and respond to the safeguarding concerns raised by the school. We respectfully ask the committee to give full and proper weight to safeguarding, recognise that the applicant has not demonstrated that safeguarding risks have been addressed, note that the boundary plan remains inaccurate, acknowledge the procedural delays, and ultimately refuse the application unless these issues are resolved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Are there any questions for the speaker? Councillor Cartwright.
Thanks, Chair. Just the one. How do staff and old enough students access your car park, sir? Do they use that road?
We have 2 car parks, and yes, students use that road. Yes, they do.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Frost.
Thank you. That's a quick one. Can you expand upon the, you said you put in a request for a fence and it fell on deaf ears. Can you just talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, we feel that our school playground is right there, right next to the proposed site and development. So we suggested that a fence would be a sensible kind of compromise to put up, but we were told that that would not be the case and would not be happening. So that's all we heard, and that's all we know.
And sorry, through you, Chair, you weren't given any reasons for that. You just said
no.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Breeze.
Thank you. You mentioned that you put in your objections on the 17th of October and they weren't on the public website till late January. Did you have any acknowledgement or response from officers in the meantime about concerns raised in that other than the fencing?
Yeah, we met with them twice to raise concerns, and each time we did raise that our letter of objection still hadn't been put onto the public website, and they said they would make sure that happened. But as I say, 3 months passed, and it took that long for it to go up, which was disappointing, I have to say.
Yeah. So that is disappointing, but you did have meetings with officers in between times to discuss.
Yes.
Although obviously the outcomes weren't necessarily satisfactory from your point of view.
Not from our point of view, they were entirely unsatisfactory, but I'll just hasten the point there. I mean, the 3-month delay, yes, although we are having meetings, it does limit the community's ability to see and consider and respond to what we were seeing as safeguarding concerns raised by us as the school.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any more questions? No. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Jones.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. We now have a written submission from Peter Stangl, who's a local resident, and this will be read by Democratic Services.
Thank you, Chair. I will now read the statement of Peter Stangl. And the statement begins as follows. I'm writing to formally object to the proposed development of 38 relocatable self-contained modular accommodation units at land at the former Lings Upper School site directly opposite my property at 22 Emmanuel Court, Northampton, NN3 8NX. This site is also in very close proximity to Northampton Academy and Western Favel Surgery. While I recognise and respect the importance of providing accommodation and support for vulnerable members of society, I have serious concerns regarding the suitability of this location and the potential impacts of the development on existing residents, local infrastructure, and in particular children who pass through this area daily on their way to and from school. Number one, impacts on local infrastructure. Local infrastructure in this area is already under significant pressure. Northampton Academy School, nearby health services, and local parking provision are operating at or near capacity. Pavement parking and restricted access routes are already common, particularly during peak times. The access road to the proposed site is relatively narrow, and parked vehicles frequently impede safe and free movement. Introducing a development of this scale would place additional strain on infrastructure that is already struggling to cope. 2. Traffic, access and road safety and impacts on children. This is a key concern. The surrounding roads experience substantial congestion during school drop-off and pick-up times. Large numbers of children and parents walk through and past the proposed site daily. Any increase in vehicle movements, service access, deliveries, or pedestrian traffic associated with the development would significantly increase the risk to children travelling to and from the Northampton Academy. The access arrangements and road layout are, in my view, not suitable for accommodating additional traffic and activity in such close proximity to a busy school environment. 3, loss of residential amenity. Given the very close proximity of the proposed development to existing homes, including my own, there is a high likelihood of a loss of residential amenity. This includes increased noise, disturbance, potential antisocial behaviour, littering, and a general erosion of the quiet and residential character of the area. These impacts would materially affect the safety, well-being and quality of life of current residents. 4, environmental impact. The development may negatively affect local green space and wildlife habitats. Ongoing waste management, maintenance of communal areas and surface water management will require robust and enforceable controls to avoid environmental degradation and visual harm to the surrounding area. 5, inadequate community consultation. To my knowledge, many residents living in the immediate vicinity were not adequately informed or meaningfully consulted on this development. A proposal of this nature and scale, particularly in such a sensitive location near a school and established residential properties, warrants far greater community engagement than appears to have taken place. For the reasons outlined above, I respectfully request that the Planning Authority gives significant weight to these concerns and carefully reconsiders the proposal or explores alternative locations that are more suitable and less harmful to existing residents, local infrastructure and the safety of children. Thank you for your time and consideration, and that concludes the statement of Peter Stangle. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We'll now move to Councillor Charlie Hastie, who's the Cabinet Member for Housing. Do you wish to go through your speech?
Thank you, Chair. I'm afraid it's going to be rather a groundhog day on this one. The housing case still stands, but I will, for the purposes of refreshing everyone, just from my point of view, from a housing point of view. So apologies to the live stream and members of the gallery if I sound repetitive. But so once again, the council has a statutory duty to provide temporary accommodation to households that become homeless. This duty includes prevention support to avoid homelessness, relief support while homelessness applications are assessed, and support to secure longer-term accommodations to the private rented sector or through social housing. And this is commonly referred to as the main housing duty. During consultation, concerns were raised that the proposed accommodation could be used for asylum seekers. The council confirmed that this is not the case. The accommodation is intended solely for households who have a legal right to remain in the UK and are eligible for public funds. Asylum seekers are accommodated separately by the Home Office and are not eligible for this provision. One difference from this site from the previous one is that these are all 2-bedroom units, and it is a condition that they will be for either single parent with children or a couple with children. So all units will, as my understanding, will be occupied with children. And it was that was the purpose of specifically in terms of the 2-bedroom units. So it's not going to be multiple individuals in these units. As of early February 26, just to remind everyone, the West Northamptonshire Council is providing temporary accommodation to 747 households. Of these, 316 are accommodated in properties owned or leased directly by the council. 314 households are placed in self-contained accommodation procured on a nightly paid basis. 111 households are accommodated in HMO style nightly paid accommodation, and 6 of them are placed in hotel or B&B accommodation at this current time. So that means currently 431 households are in accommodation that the council does not own. So the council is currently managing the impacts of the Renters' Rights Act, which represents a once-in-a-generation reform of the private rented sector. And while intended to improve tenant security, the legislation has introduced uncertainty into the market, and many landlords are reassessing their position, with some choosing to exit the sector. Changes to eviction processes and the removal of so-called no-fault evictions have reduced the supply of private rented accommodation available to local authorities. So in response, the council has developed a new accommodation model that brings forward high quality, directly owned and managed temporary accommodation. This model ensures that households experiencing homelessness are provided with a safe, secure and stable environment, while receiving structured support to move back into private or social rented housing. Through focused work across housing and community services, supported by specialist teams across the council, the average length of stay in nightly paid accommodation has been reduced to 116 days from 134 days in April 2025. This reduction reflects improved case management and more effective move-on support, and it is this cohort of households that the proposed accommodation is intended to serve. The development includes provision for an on-site office and community room, enabling support services to be delivered directly on-site. Additional facilities include an on-site laundrette, a small children's play area, and the proposed extension of the council's partnership with Voy. But I refer back to our earlier conversation with Councillor Breese about the fact that this can be looked into as alternatives, including on-site electric scooter provision to improve access to services and employment. Turning to the accommodation itself, the units are purpose-built for West Northamptonshire Council and provide fully self-contained living accommodation, each with its own living space, kitchen, bathroom, and bedrooms. The design ensures accommodation that is safe, secure, and suitable for households experiencing the crisis of homelessness, while maintaining dignity and stability during what is a temporary period of need. And I can confirm that this will be the existing fencing, but will also have CCTV, so we are confident about the safeguarding and security of this particular site. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Councillor? Councillor Smith.
Thank you. What was your awareness of the safeguarding concerns that the school has raised, and how confident are you that there is no safeguarding risk to the students at Northampton Academy?
I actually think that's a question that I may have to give over to officers. I am aware of the school being there and the academy, but I'm not in terms of the planning or the. I think that may be a question by your leave, Chair, for Sean or an officer.
Yep, I think the officers can come back on that one later.
Thank you. I will make sure you get that answer, Councillor Smith.
Any further questions from committee? Councillor Cartwright.
Yeah, thank you. There is a part existing fence already there, and you say there's going to be CCTV to supervise the site. I'll take it we make sure that doesn't go into the school.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Councillor Beryl. Yeah, he's not registered to speak, so. Any more questions from the committee? Nope. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee.
We now have the agent for the applicant, which is Michael O'Connor. Back again.
Okay. Good evening, Chair, members of the Planning Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'm from Brampton Town Planning, acting on behalf of the Council as applicant. The proposal to provide modular accommodation units on this site represents a significant step forward in addressing the pressing issue of homelessness locally. In summary, we consider the key benefits of this proposal to be: 1, addressing housing needs. The development will provide housing for vulnerable residents who find themselves homeless, offering a better alternative accommodation to families in expensive rental, hotel and BB accommodation, which in many cases is not fit for family life. The modular units, while temporary, are designed to provide a safe and dignified living environment. 2, community amenities. The inclusion of a community hub, laundry facilities and children's play area on site ensures that residents will have access to essential services and recreational space, fostering a sense of community and well-being. The proposed development is also in a highly sustainable location, being within short walking distance of a wide range of social, community, health and recreational facilities, plus Western Fable Shopping Centre and public transport services. 3, sustainable design. The proposal aligns with sustainable development principles outlined in policy S10 in the joint
core strategy. The modular units we manufactured off-site, reducing construction time and minimising environmental impacts. Additionally, the development includes renewable and green energy technology and a sustainable urban drainage system to manage surface water drainage effectively, mitigating flood risks. 4, minimal impact on surroundings. The design and layout of the development has been carefully considered to ensure minimal impact on the character of the area and the amenities of adjoining occupiers. The modular units are modern in appearance and will be softened by landscaping, which includes the retention of mature trees and additional planting. While 5 objections have been received, the concerns raised, such as traffic, infrastructure impact and biodiversity, have all been thoroughly addressed in the scheme proposals before you. Modifications to the site access and parking provisions ensure safe and convenience for residents and the surrounding community, while ecological impacts are being mitigated through landscaping and biodiversity enhancements. With specific regard to the objection received from Northampton Academy, I would like to take this opportunity to comment on concerns raised over visual privacy and safeguarding. Having housing development adjacent to schools is far from unusual. In fact, I have personally worked on several projects, including for the Department of Education, where such circumstances have existed. Notwithstanding this, the separation distance between the proposed accommodation units on site and the playground at the academy is approximately 50 metres. This compares with the council's required minimum back-to-back dwelling separation distance in new developments of just 21 metres. Given this and the intervening vegetation, which will filter any views, we consider that the proposed development will safeguard visual privacy. The council's housing services team will also apply rules for the letting of the units prior to first occupation, allow on-site management working out of their office, as well as 24/7 CCTV monitoring via WNC's central system, facilitating a swift response to any issues that may occur. In summary, this proposal presents a well-considered and necessary step towards helping meet the needs of homelessness within West Northamptonshire. It will provide a positive transformation for this vacant brownfield site, balancing the need for temporary accommodation with the preservation of local character and environmental sustainability. Overall, we believe the development will create a strong sense of place for future residents, which we hope they will be happy to call home, if only for a temporary period, until WNC are able to provide more permanent accommodation, or ideally residents have found their own alternative accommodation. I therefore respectfully request that the committee members endorse the officer's positive recommendation and approve the planning application. Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Councillor Breeze.
Thank you. During the presentation, we heard that the all units are to be occupied by families, whether single parent or 2 parents. How is this secured?
How is it secured?
How is it secured? Yes. I've looked through the conditions and I can't see anything that says that the
there isn't a proposed condition requiring that. What would happen is the housing services within the council would clearly look to put the families in this accommodation compared with alternatives that may be available to them. So that's the intention, is to prioritise families to go to this site rather than possibly the Edgar Mobbs one, or alternative accommodation, which we talked about with regards unsuitable accommodation like B&B and hotel accommodation. So that's.
So it's only an intention, and if you had I don't know, sharers come forward, then you may say it was only an intention. So we had 2.
No, this has been specifically designed for families.
Yeah.
And there is that waiting list and latent demand for families to be provided some accommodation and get them out of home, dealing with homelessness. So that's the priority of this site. Chair, I can come back to some of the points that were raised earlier with some of the other speakers, if that's okay.
Certainly.
So there was a question raised by Councillor Smith regards fire access. Although the higher fire hydrants are proposed on site, the tracking that we've done in terms of vehicle tracking will take an RCV, which is a refuse collection vehicle of roughly the same size. So a vehicle that a fire tender could also access the site safely. But we do have an alternative provision with regards dealing with fire. Okay. I would also like to just come back on some of the points that were raised by the principal at the academy, Mr. Klein. We have held discussions with the school, as we've touched on with regards issues around safeguarding. So to be honest, I'm not quite sure some of the points that he was actually saying in terms of information not being relayed back to him. That is not my understanding, because I actually provided the information to him. So he requested a number of bits of information, some to do with the impact it might have on the funding of the school, issues about fencing, arrangements, issues about safeguarding. So we explained the issues about safeguarding, the issue about the retained landscaping on site, the tree cover, and to stop up gaps that may already be there within that tree cover, or following works, if there was any gaps that would be created as we put in some of the infrastructure, we would look to shore up those gaps with new planting. In terms of the specific request for fencing, we do have fencing proposed, but what they were considering is close board fencing or something similar. We didn't see the need for that for the reasons I've explained. The distance between the site in terms of the units is 50 metres or more, which is more than adequate. And also there is that, let's say, that this intervening vegetation. There's also a change in levels. So the use of a closed board fencing or similar wouldn't serve any purpose unless it was significantly high, because there is that change in levels on the site. We've touched on the issues around access, both in terms of vehicle access and safe access for students attending the academy. We've had discussions with the Highway Authority. We've made some improvements to the access, and the Highway Authority happy with the design proposals that we put to them, and they have themselves no objection. There was a couple of points also mentioned by local residents and their objection. One of them was around the consultation, about inadequate consultation. Just to reassure everybody, we did a letter drop of all the adjacent residents within the immediate area. We also advertised the public consultation event, an exhibition that we also held locally, that was advertised in the local paper ahead of the event. And like I said, we undertook a public exhibition to basically allow people to come and view the proposals and have a chance to ask questions of the project team. I think probably that covers most of the points.
Thank you very much. Councillor Frost.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This fence thing, the school said they would like it, and you said that you don't think they need it. I guess I don't get it. What are the downsides of giving them what they wanted?
I'm not, like I said before, I've done lots of projects. I'm working on one just at the moment up in Nuneaton, right next to a school, building houses around the school. I've worked with the Academy Trust that brought the school forward, and the Department of Environment, Department of Education. I've actually also worked for the Department of Education with new schools and development around schools.
Sure.
Yeah, so the issue that it feels to me somewhat conflated. Saying that, I do understand the role of the principal to make sure the pupils within the school are safe and staff, but I'm not quite sure what the issue is. I think part of it was a concern of who might be in this future accommodation, not per se the issue of safeguarding.
Sorry, let me just get to the point.
So
what's the downside of giving them the fence they want? That's what I'm trying to ask. What is it, a money thing? What?
No. As I mentioned before, we don't feel there's actually a need for fencing because of the intervening vegetation on the site between where the units are and where the school is and the playground. So there's already intervening vegetation cover. You can see it on some of the images if Andrew was able to pull them back up.
the distance between the units and the playground is 50 metres or more. Issues around privacy with regards back-to-back dwellings, the minimum that's is in policy is 22 metres. We've got a distance of 50 metres. And the issue about specifically about providing fencing, as I mentioned, putting in the fencing, there was a change in levels. So the fencing really wouldn't achieve much because you would actually look over the fence unless the fence was like 10, 15 foot high. So that's, yeah.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, just so apologies for going over our ground, but really to echo Councillor Frost's point, outside of a particular financial restraint, it feels, from my perspective, if a local principal of a large academy with a duty to safeguarding and his school have discussed the idea that they feel a fence would go some way to mitigating the issue, also to perhaps reassuring students and staff, so as well as perhaps the direct what might go on in other sort of settings. In this setting where there's a particularly unique development, whatever the nature of the people we've spoken about in terms of who might be occupying it, there's a unique development that people are unsure of that happens to be placed right next to a school where both parents and students might feel a degree of anxiety, but also a professional working at quite a high level within education has raised these concerns. What is the barrier to, regardless of whether the developers see the need, putting in a mitigation which might help to reassure the people who are putting their sense of safety and security of students forward as a concern?
I would say if you think back in a sense, why are they raising concerns about safeguarding? As I touched on, I've worked on many projects, also for the Department of Education, where you have housing, new housing schemes right next to a school. The issue that seems to be at the root of this is a concern of who might be living in this temporary accommodation. This is families who found for whatever the reason, it may be a no-fault eviction. They could be school actual teachers at the school through no fault of their own. They've got financial difficulties and find themselves homeless, and they could be in that accommodation. So the issue about the safeguarding one, I'm to be honest, I'm not quite sure what it is. I feel that the root of it is a concern of who might be in this accommodation. But coming to the point about could we put a fence in? Yes, we could put a fence in, but as I touched on, there is a change in levels on the site. So putting in a fence, unless it was significantly high, wouldn't serve much of a purpose. And as I mentioned before, there is that distance of 50 metres plus existing woodland between the units and the school. So yeah, if we had to, and leave that to the officers, if there was a need and the officers thought, and the wider committee thought there was a need to put a condition in requiring us to put in close-board fencing or consider it in some way, I'm sure my client would be happy to do so. But as I mentioned, I don't think that is the issue, really.
Yeah, just in terms, again, of the concerns around the accommodation, I think my concern with, as I said, with the previous one is that children living in those accommodations may themselves find themselves stigmatised because everybody will be aware of the circumstances of people living within that housing, whereas perhaps temporary accommodation, which is placed within rented accommodation in a community, it wouldn't be obvious to everybody where somebody was living. So I don't think for me there is any concern necessarily about stigmatising who might be in temporary accommodation. I think what is different perhaps from standard new build estates is a guaranteed transience. We talk a lot about transience within our communities. You might have certain housing estates that would be more transient than others for one reason and another, but there would be some degree of stability. In this development guarantees transient. So for a school, I can see the ability to track where there might be concerns, if there are behaviours developing that might be concerning,
Yeah,
what you might be able to see in terms of safeguarding responsibilities might be exacerbated by a unique development with guaranteed transients, and it may not be about stigmatising people who find themselves temporarily homeless, which we know is a real issue, but it may be about what happens when you put guaranteed transients next door to a school where the school may find it harder within those circumstances to pick up on issues or concerns or a sense of what might be going on in the surrounding community. And for that reason, I feel that having more productive conversations, or at least it's concerning, therefore, to find that we've got to this stage in the process and the people tasked with safeguarding students are still uneasy and concerned about that.
Yeah.
For me, is something that it would be a better situation had that been resolved before we got to this point.
Yeah, if I could come back to that, I don't think it could be resolved. That's the point I'm making. We've done as much as I think we can do. We've explained how we've designed the scheme. We've explained what we would look to do in terms of shoring up the existing tree cover on the site. There is fencing. If there's a need to put in close board fencing on the boundary that is the northern boundary that goes towards the school, the outdoor play area, then sports area, then I'm sure my client would be happy to do so. In making the comments back, and we said this straight away to the academy, we understand the role that they have and the principal, and they're doing their job. This is different kind of accommodation. It isn't the typical housing estate, and we understand that. So the fact that they've raised questions, that wasn't an issue for us at all, and we've replied to the issues that have been raised. I think what it comes back to, and then picking up the point on the accommodation being transient, it is, people will be there for 3 to 6 months, but the council's housing team will monitor who's going into the site. They will not be putting in people that proposes a risk, either safeguarding for the school or even adjacent residents. They wouldn't do that. That's their own, in a sense, duty of care themselves. And as touched on by the councillor, and as mentioned in my speech, the scheme itself comes with an on-site office with WNC staff, and CCTV on the site to ensure that it's a safe environment for those who live on the site, and to make sure that there is no issues of security that could cause a problem with neighbours. So I feel that my client has done as much as they can, and I do think, like I said, that there is a bit of a misunderstanding between Mr. Klein in terms of what he feels has been given back to him. And like I said, he might not have liked all the answers, but we have responded to all the points he has raised. So.
Councillor Cartwright.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm not sure sort of how a fence would go here, because the school's already got a fence around it on its side. So I'm not sure if any mention's been given to the height of this.
No, I don't think it's most.
I'm sure you're right, but I'm
no,
asking
that's a palisade fencing, and so that you can see through the fence. I think part of that is security rather than a safeguard. That has its safeguarding benefit because people can't get in, but part of it was about the visual side of things, and I think we've covered the issue about the visual. If there is a need, if the council believes that the committee believes the need for putting in close board fencing, then I'm sure my client would accept such a condition. That's
Councillor Tarburn.
Sorry, I'm just looking at the mapping and I'm struggling myself to work out the 50-metre buffer. Can you tell us where it's from and to, this buffer measurement?
It's not a buffer, it's the separation distance between, because the concern was about looking in, the visual intervisibility between the unit and the school. Okay, so from the back of the units to the playground, which is to the north of the site, that is 50 metres. Yeah, yeah.
Any further questions? No. Okay, thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so at this point, are there any points that the officers wish to come back on?
Yes, Chair, I think Mr O'Connell has said a lot of what I was going to say, and I don't want to labour the safeguarding point any further really, but the fact that you can see from a residential property into a school playground is not really a planning issue as long as it's an adequate separation distance. We can't say you can't, as Mr O'Connell says, it's quite common to have housing around schools at much closer distances. People from those houses will see the children in the playground. That's not a reason to refuse a planning application. And a fence would be so high that it would be, I think if planning conditions do that, would be an unreasonable condition. If it was going to be so high, and we'd have concerns about how a high fence is going to look in the area, and it would be a visually detrimental thing. So I don't think that is really something that we could insist on or reasonably request. I'll leave safeguarding at that point. Other points that came from the academy. The access to the site has been looked at by the Council Highways Department. They consider that is adequate and safe, so we can't really take issue with that. The redaction of the comments from the college, that is unfortunate. That came in, it wasn't correctly redacted. We have to redact any comments that come in, make sure there's no personal information shown. That came to me as case officer, that hadn't been done properly. I referred it back, and it did unfortunately take a long time to get that back on the website and publicly visible, which I can only apologise that happened, but that doesn't mean it wasn't taken into account and considered properly, everything the college said. And as Mr O'Connell said, there've been discussions with the college, the academy, in response to all of their points, and I think everything has been reasonably dealt with as much as possible. I think everything else has been covered, so that's all I needed to say.
Okay, thank you. So at this point now we move to debating the application. So I hand it to Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I mean, for me, in terms of the residential amenity for the people living on site, for me, this is not an appropriate residential amenity for families. It's not an appropriate provision in terms of the quality of the accommodation and the area of the accommodation. For me, there is an element, so the residential amenity for me would remain the same as discussed previously on that point. I am not completely appreciating the points that have been raised within the safeguarding. It deeply concerns me that a professional body, as it were, a school, rather than say individual residents who would take a view on it, but also that such a professional body of the school has got such acute concerns, to me remains concerning. For me, I would think of it in terms of the neighbouring amenity. Previously we're discussing in terms of businesses. In this case, I would say the amenity of the school, the amenity and appropriateness of the location in terms of surrounding properties and surrounding amenity for neighbours would come under that. I think just the discussion of the kind of suitability, because we are talking about something, I think there are a lot of equivalencies made with what a housing estate, a new housing estate would be in terms of schools. And I think when a development is dramatically different, that's something to take into account, and I would still be minded to refuse the application on those grounds.
Councillor Cartwright.
Thank you, Chair. There's been a few interesting points made here this evening. Just what I've noted, that access into there will be quite near the beginning of Birds Hill Walk, and actually only people that drive round there are apparently students at the school to use that car park. So, you know, new drivers going into the car park, dead ends in there. Is one point. There's going to be CCTV on the site. There's going to be a laundry on the site and a community hub. I think there's plenty of amenities for a temporary accommodation. And as for the rest, I think I'll be looking at the housing department to make sure that it is used for families like they're asking for it to be used for families. So that'll be children. I can't see an issue with the school. I've rarely ever seen a school that isn't right in the residential area, because that's how the kids get to school. They live near it. There are a few of my thoughts on the subject. Thank you.
Councillor Rainbow.
More of a question to the officers and obviously the committee. Obviously the intention is to use it for families, single parents and children, or whatever the situation may be. And obviously there's not a condition, like Councillor Breeze said. Is it possible for us to put a condition in, or would that be unreasonable to ask, or what's the situation with that?
Yeah, through you, Chair. I think you've got to remember that as a planning authority, you're just looking at land use. You're not really looking at the specifics of who's going to be in there, the land users, as it were. So
Okay.
I think you're straying a little bit into I think what Councillor Cartwright said is right. That's more of a role for the housing team.
Yeah.
So if we start getting involved in saying it must be stipulated that there are family accommodation here as a planning authority, I think you're overstretching your role a little bit.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Councillor Beryl.
Thank you, Chair. For me, committee, location is much better than the previous application, and when it gets to the stage, I would like to propose we accept the plan application. I would like to be the proposer.
Okay. Is there any seconders for the proposal? Councillor Rainbird.
Happily second that proposal. Thank you.
Yes. So you won't be eligible to vote because you left the meeting during the discussion.
That's fine.
So, can you act as a seconder? Councillor Cartwright. Okay. Would you like to summarise?
Thank you, Chair. So it's proposed by Councillor Beryl and seconded by Councillor Cartwright that permission be approved, subject to the conditions set out in the report as per the officer recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Can we see a show of hands in favour of the proposal? Those against? Any abstentions? 0. Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Yes, Sarah, you take a 5-minute break for comfort. Okay, shall we make a start now? Yeah. We'll now move on to item 6, which is Mountfield High Street, Culworth. I will now hand over to the case officer, Ralph Branston, to begin the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. This report refers to a conservation area tree work notification received from a local tree surgeon acting on behalf of the owner of a property located in the Culworth Conservation Area. This item is being brought to this committee rather than being decided under delegated powers to follow correct planning protocol, as the property owner is an elected member of the council. The monitoring officer has been made aware of this notification and confirmed that we are dealing with it in accordance with the council's constitution. In brief, the proposed works are to fell 6 trees and crown reduce 4 others. 9 of the 10 trees are located in the front of the property and are visible within the street scene. Sorry. That's the site location and the location of the trees within the site. And these are a couple of views of the street scene coming from the east and west along the high street in Culworth. 9 of the trees are located at the front of the property and are visible from the high street to varying degrees. Officers consider the trees to have medium to low amenity value, given that they are obscured from the wider landscape of the village and are particularly obscured or partially obscured by adjacent structures. The trees have limited arboricultural merit and have outgrown their location, as detailed in paragraph 1.6 of the report. In terms of consultation, no representations or objections have been received. So the officers recommend that the committee raises no objection to the notification as set out in the report, with the informatives as shown at the end of the report. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Councillor Frost?
Would it help if I asked if we go with officers' recommendation?
You can do, yeah. Would anyone wish to second that? Yeah, Councillor Cartwright, LD.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I would suggest that we're here.
Yeah, no,
purely-
that's fine. I'm happy to do that. So you do wish to summarise?
Thank you, Chair. If it requires a summary, it's proposed by Councillor Frost and Councillor Cartwright, and seconded by Councillor Cartwright, that the officer's recommendation be approved. To the vote, Chair.
Okay, those in favour? That's unanimous. Yep, that's carried. Thank you. We now move on to item 7, the Bell Plantation, Watling Street Toaster. I will now hand over to the case officer, Susie Russell, to begin the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. This application relates to the Bell Plantation Garden Centre in Towcester. The site is located close to the A43 and A5 junction. So in terms of the proposal and the layout, the proposal is to extend the main garden centre building to the rear and create an additional 1,367 square metres of additional floor space to the sales area. It would incorporate 800 square metres at a mezzanine level above, and this would be used for storage and ancillary office space, and it would be used ancillary to the running of the garden centre operation. As well as this, other works include a canopy and an extended glass canopy area and a new covered storage area. So the total floor area is 3,508, although some of this is just covered roofs and open at the sides with the canopies. That's the reason that it's being called to, coming to committee for a decision, because it's a major application, so it can't be determined under delegated powers. So here's the elevations. So if you look at the top right elevation, that's the highest point, and it shows that's where the mezzanine level will be. This is the view from the east, so sort of from further down the bypass towards Tiffield direction. The building with the line of 2 windows, and then coming back to the left, you can see it lowers down for the enclosed canopy area and the new glass canopy and covered canopy areas. And the photos, bottom right, you can see some photos, and they kind of demonstrate that the character and design is in keeping with the existing building. Also, matching materials would be used as well. So in summary, an extra slide. How can I click back? Oh, there we are. It's okay, it's done it. Okay, so in summary, no objections have been received. No conditions are recommended from highways. Conditions were recommended from archaeology and ecology. The proposal's been assessed against the relevant national and local planning policies and material considerations. South Northamptonshire Local Plan Policy Part 2, EMP 2, generally permits the expansion of businesses in their existing location, and Policy R2 of West Northants Joint Core Strategy supports proposals that sustain and enhance the rural economy by safeguarding jobs and businesses. Due to the out-of-town location, an independent retail impact assessment has been carried out, which included a sequential test, which it passed. This confirms that there will be no significant adverse impact on Towcester High Street, subject to a condition limiting the sale of goods to typical garden centre products only. Officers recommend approval subject to the suggested conditions, which include limiting the sale of goods to typical garden centre products only. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Councillor Tarbin.
Just regarding the, on screen at the moment, the condition limiting the sale of goods to typical garden centre products, is that a condition written in the report? Is that?
Yes, it's in the report. It's quite long and it's got, there's quite a lot. It's actually copy and pasted from the independent. It's in the report as well, the retail impact assessment, because that's the condition wording that they recommended.
That's fantastic. Thank you. That's all I needed.
Okay.
Any other questions from the committee? No. Okay. We will now move on to public speaking in the following order. Adrian Fox, agent for the applicants.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Planning Committee. My name is Adrian Fox. I'm the agent acting on behalf of the applicant, Bell Plantation Holdings, who are a local business who've been representing Towcester for almost 40 years. I'm joined this evening by Jethro Warren from Bell Plantations, who sat next to me. We've worked closely and collaboratively with your officers throughout the consideration of the application before you, and we fully endorse your officer's recommendation to grant plan permission. Bell Plantation Holdings is a family business established at the application site since 1987. The site comprises a well-established garden centre anchoring the wider Bell Plantation complex and currently attracts visitors to Towcester from a wide area and complements the offer available in the town centre. The application before you today has been pursued to strengthen the anchored garden centre function and secure its long-term success. The proposals represent further private sector investment in a location that brings a number of benefits. It represents a good news story for Towcester. Bell Plantation is a major employer, currently employing around 200 people. The applicant actively works the economic team at the council in providing local jobs and providing a significant amount of work experience placements across local schools. Consequently, the existing garden centre and wider Bell Plantation development provides an important economic and training facility in the local area. The intention is this to continue. Therefore, its long-term success is extremely important for Towcester.
The current proposals seek to extend the existing garden centre. The driving rationale for this is to increase the products available, to provide a more attractive shopping environment, and to make better use of existing external display and storage areas. The proposals will be of a high quality and will improve the overall appearance of Bell Plantation. A planning condition has been agreed that controls the goods permitted to be sold, which is entirely consistent with the current position. This will ensure that the garden centre will continue to complement the town centre. In terms of the principle, the local plan is supportive of employment-generated development, including retail, in this location, subject to the relevant retail policy test being addressed. In this respect, the proposal has been scrutinised by a third-party consultant instructed by the council. This independent advice has confirmed that the proposals are acceptable. This includes confirmation no alternative site exists to accommodate the development, and importantly, that the proposals not adversely impact upon the long-term role and function of Towcester Town Centre, a position accepted by your officers. The fact that the extended garden centre will continue to complement the town centre is also reflected by the fact that Towcester Town Council raised no objection. Indeed, not a single objection has been raised to the application. All relevant planning matters have been fully addressed. This includes highways and design matters, and your officers have found the proposals to be acceptable, as confirmed by the positive recommendation. Instead, the continued improvement of Bell Plantation has potential to lead to spin-off benefits for existing businesses in the town centre. Customer surveys of visitors have identified that more than a third link a trip between the garden centre and the town centre. This is significant given that Bell Plantation draws customers from a wide area that may not otherwise visit Towcester. These link trips will continue and are likely to increase as a result of the proposals. This means there is an opportunity for existing and future businesses on the high street to benefit from the long-term success of Bell Plantation. To conclude, we would like to highlight the following. Officers and external consultants agree that the proposals are acceptable when considered against all relevant planning policy. There are substantial benefits associated with the development. These include creation of new and full and part-time jobs, further investment in the local economy, increased consumer choice, and the potential for link trips to the town centre. These benefits are significant and have previously been acknowledged by the council in determining past proposals at Bell Plantation, and they should be afforded significant weight in the determination of this planning application. We therefore strongly urge you to support your officer's recommendation and grant planning permission for the proposals before you this evening. Thank you for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? No. Thank you very much. Okay. Are there any points that you wish to come back on? No. Okay. I will now open the floor up to the discussion or debate of the application. Councillor Tarburn.
The main point I want to make is that whilst the Bell Plantation has free parking and parking charges are still on the table for Towcester Town Centre, I'm not sure how anyone can guarantee that there'll be no adverse impact on the high street. It's still very much plausible that it will have an impact.
Councillor Cartwright.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, well, to that very point, the implementation conditions, paragraph 8, are pretty much they can only sell their basic garden centre items that shouldn't impact on the high street. And I was going to suggest that if there weren't any objections from anybody, that I might move to accept the conditions, but does anybody want to object to it? Okay, I
Making a proposal?
We'll,
Yep. Any seconders?
Recommendations.
Councillor McMurtry. Do you wish to summarise?
Thank you, Chair. It's proposed by Councillor Cartwright and seconded by Councillor McMurtry that permission be granted in accordance with the case officer's recommendations, subject to the conditions as set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, can we see hands in favour of the motion? Those against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Now move on to item 8, 68 Banbury Road, Brackley. I will now hand over to the case officer, Rebecca Wilkinson Foster, to begin the presentation.
Page 36. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. This application is for the change of use of a dwelling to a dental surgery use Class E with a single-storey rear extension and alterations to the parking. Here we can see the site location plan of the proposed property for the change of use. And the aerial shot shows the property in question outlined in red. Existing elevations of the property. And then the proposed. From the street scene, there's limited changes to the building, just the removal of the garage and insertion of a window and the bricking up of the wall. And then to the rear, a small single-storey extension. That's the existing floor plans. And then the proposed floor plans. Surgeries would be to the lower ground floor and then just staff room and office space to the upper floor. Site photos showing the front of the property to the left and then the rear to the right. And this photo here shows the area where the proposed rear extension would take place. And then this outbuildings to be removed as part of the development to allow for the rear extension. Given that the proposal provides a community facility in accordance with policy INF2 of the local plan, the principle is considered acceptable. It is considered that the parking is acceptable, providing an adequate number of off-road spaces for the use of this nature and scale. And in addition, the relationship to other properties on balance, the effect on residential amenity would be limited. Therefore, there are no material planning reasons why the application cannot be supported. So the application is recommended for approval with the conditions listed below, listed within the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the committee? No. Okay. We will move on to public speaking in the following order. Chris Cartmel, a local resident.
So, thank you. Chairman, councillors, I'm Chris Cartmel. I live at 70 Banbury Road, and in effect, we're sandwiched between the existing dental surgery and where the dental surgery is proposed to move to. Albeit that the recommendation is for approval, I wish to point out a few salient items which may have escaped your notice. The current dental surgery has got 5 staff and 2 surgery rooms. From the floor plan of the new surgery, there are 5 surgery rooms, so therefore it's assumed that the existing staff will transfer over and that there's the potential for up to 10 to 12 new staff. And then, of course, all the additional patients which it will attract. The question is, where are all these additional staff going to park? And also, where are the additional patients going to park? Going on to parking issues. The revised parking plan shows a total of 9 parking places, 3 allocated to staff car parks, 6 to patients, plus 1 disabled parking bay. Having a blue badge myself, I'm acutely aware of the shortcomings of some of these disabled spaces. The location of this parking bay is right up against the fence. It allows no room whatsoever for the driver to get out the car, or if parked the other way round, then the passenger can't get out of the car. From the officer's report, she comments on the other patient parking as follows. The LHA do note that not all bays have the required 6-metre reverse space, so manoeuvring may be more contrived to enter and exit the spaces. Further details of the secure parking provision should be considered. Concerning access and exiting the site, much of the time during the day, cars are parked immediately to the left and right of the entrance, as it was on the day of your site visit. That, together with the 2-metre high hedge, which forms part of the street scene, makes it a very difficult entering or exiting the property. Even with an increased display vision, it's still going to be difficult for drivers who are not used to this particular exit as they will not be using it on a regular basis. On a previously rejected planning application to build 3 new houses in the back garden of number 68, WNC commented, the prevailing on-street parking pressures and access from Banbury Road are as such that adequate parking must be demonstrably achievable within the site. Living next door to the surgery as we are, and well aware of the chaotic driving and parking on Banbury Road, only a few days ago there was a traffic accident outside the surgery where a car ran into the rear of an ambulance. Luckily no one was injured, but it blocked the road for a little while. At the end of last year there was another accident further up the road where 4 cars were involved. It's a very busy, quite dangerous road because of the style of parking on each side of the road. Is this going to be a complete change of use between 72 and 68, or is number 72 going to retain its commercial use as an option once the dentist moves out to 68, or will 72 revert to fully residential as there is a flat on the top floor? Having commercial premises in an established residential area is totally out of keeping with the surroundings. The loss of this beautiful 4-bedroom house with a very large garden is sacrilege. It is expected that if this application is successful, the rear garden will probably go to rack and ruin and just revert to nature. Or perhaps the applicant could be asked to turn some of the rear garden to additional parking, thus helping alleviate the bottleneck at the front of the property. There is also the question of the advertising sign for this dental property. It's a very, very large sign, the existing one they've got. Where are they going to put that? That's not shown on any of the plans. As I say, I think it's totally out of keeping, and it's the traffic issues that mainly concern everybody and the residents all around who I'm here to speak for this evening. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the councillors? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We now have Councillor Fiona Baker, who's the local ward member.
I'm not quite sure what to say to you now. I think Mr. Cartmel has given you a good summary of what the residents have actually told me when I've met with them. There are more residents than obviously Mr. Cartmel, who lives next door, with concerns about. Banbury Road is one of the older roads in our lovely rural town, which is used often as a through road from coming from Banbury to get into town the other end, and people do charge along there. Because people park both sides, you know what happens. Everybody tries to be first and get through before they have to stop somewhere. That is an ongoing situation on that road. So it is a residential road. There are no other businesses apart from the dentist further up that Mr. Cartmel mentioned. The parking layout that's shown in the plans is rather ambitious in my view. There needs to be a space for vehicles to turn round, as they can't possibly reverse out onto the main road because of the busy traffic. And what you haven't shown in your picture is from the main road down to the house. All of those houses along there are on a very steep slope. So the road is here and the houses are down there. So that when you come up the drive to enter into the main road, you can't really see, because you know what it's like when you're on a slope, you can't really see, you're not on the same level as the road. So there's a 1 metre drop between the existing drive and the lawn area marked for parking. 6 cars maximum could be parked in that area, in my opinion. There are, as we've already heard, there are 5 clinical rooms, so we can assume from that 5 dentists, hygienists, whatever, plus assistants and admin staff, already more people than there are parking spaces allowed for. This is there is very little on-street parking there, so everybody has got to park in parking on the site. If you went up there any time of the day, you can't find a space to park. There are cars parked On the opposite side, there's lots of terraced housing, so they don't have drives, etc. So they all park on the road. I've explained to you how pulling out will be exceedingly difficult. Personally, I wouldn't want to do that from poor visibility. The only way to alter that would be to put parking restrictions on the road, both sides, which obviously would upset the residents of Banbury Road even more because it would reduce the number of parking spaces available. So it's a notorious road for traffic jams in the morning and the afternoon at school times and work times, and certainly will cause a lot of extra problems in the opinion of all of the residents who have contacted me, who are far and wide up the road, not just living next door. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? No, thank you very much. I'll now move on to Kathy Ellis, a local resident speaking in support.
Chair, councillors, good evening. Hello, I'm Kathy, one of Arjan's customers, and I'm here to tell you about his dental practice and why he needs your support. Arjan and his wife Pinky have lived in Northamptonshire for over 2 decades and have 2 young boys, 11 and 9. He qualified over 20 years ago and today is an active member of the General Dental Council, as well as using his skills to train future practitioners. Arjan opened his first practice in Brackley in 2018 at South Gables, Banbury Road, which he acquired on a leasehold basis from the previous dentist, David Newport, who lives upstairs in the flat that you've just heard about. He's worked hard to build a successful business. It's centred on Arjan as principal practitioner, supported by Pinky, also a dentist, who works there part-time and at another practice here in Towcester, plus 2 other full-time employees and 3 part-time ones. 95% of his customers are from Brackley, with many from nearby Mercedes, the remainder from surrounded villages like me. Mr. Newport is seeking forfeiture on the lease, which has another 7 years to run, so Arjan needs new premises. He initially looked at another rural location, but WNC Planning at pre-app stage advised him that it would not support it as he needed to be at a location customers could walk to. So he sought a suitable property in Brackley, and hey presto, one came up just 2 doors down from his current practice. Arjan needs to move as he's losing his current premises, but the new location will allow him to expand his business through offering new technologies and better, larger facilities. Hopefully some of you visited his current practice. While the customer-facing facilities are modern and up to date, behind the scenes, you can hardly swing a cat. Staff facilities are cramped, storage is very limited, and there's no room for installing new kit. For example, the new purpose-built surgery, with the extra surgeries that you've heard about, will give the team the space to invest in a scanner. Do you remember having that awful gloop stuck in your mouth to take a mould and the terror when the dentist removed it that your teeth were going to be pulled out too? Well, that's the thing of the past. A scanner does what it says on the tin. It scans the inside of your mouth and is commonplace in modern surgeries. But it's large. It's a big piece of kit. It needs its own room. Arjan also wants to have a specialist surgery set up purely for undertaking root canal surgery and implants. But I won't explain that. Much has been made of parking and the fear this move will create more traffic. I just don't understand this fear. I've never shared the waiting room with more than one customer, and sometimes I'm the only one there. The way Arjan operates is by allowing 30 minutes per customer for a checkup and 30 minutes for a hygienist appointment. That's the nature of private dentistry as opposed to the NHS. Which is a 5 to 10 minute appointment system. Indeed, we have just 1 NHS dentist and 4 private ones in Brackley, so it's critical for the success of our town to be able to offer and support both types of practice. Back to parking. It is level, by the way, there. The greatest number of employees on site at any one time will be 5. Arjan's architect has worked closely with WNC Highways to make sure there's plenty of room with an agreed 9 spaces available, which is a huge improvement to today, where because of the leaseholders' own vehicles, which are quite large, parked on site is at best tight and does require reversing out onto the Banbury Road. Now, the closure of Southfield School means traffic on Banbury Road is considerably lower in the past. And by the way, there is also a vet's practice and a very popular Indian takeaway and another one further up. And there are also speed calming measures, which have not been mentioned. So traffic is lower than in the past, and committee, please consider if it's not bought and converted by Arjan and his team, what will become of it? It is a large plot. So committee, we need Arjan's business in Brackley, and in this current climate, we should all be supporting our small local enterprises and their families. It's a successful, well-managed business, just trying to move 2 doors down from its current location. Please, I urge you to give your full support to this well-considered application. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the committee? Councillor Frost, sorry, you just take a seat for a moment. Ask your question.
Sorry,
Sorry.
just forgive my curiosity, I suppose, but I completely understand why he needs to move. You've explained it very clear, but why? I put you on the spot a little bit. Why would you like him to be where he's proposing and not in the town centre?
Well, you can only move to a property that's available. And
So
obviously,
simply because there's nothing available in the town centre, is that the long short of it?
well, he has to move, as,
Yeah,
as
no,
I
exactly.
explained, he's been thrown out by his leaseholder. So he has to make a move. And obviously a town centre location, which this is preferable, as already stated by your own planning department.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you rather it's town centre, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions from the committee? Thank you. We now move to John Dickinson, agent for the applicant.
Thank you, Chair, and members of the Planning Committee. As I say, I'm John Dickinson. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to address you to support the application, which is for the change of use of number 68. We've heard of the sort of reasons why quite powerfully, and this is, I think, number 68 becoming available is very interesting. Obviously, from an architectural point of view, we reviewed the building and it's fantastic to actually convert and quite easy to convert into a dental surgery. The rooms are sufficiently large to have exemplar style surgeries. And it really requires very little alterations, as you'll have seen from the plans. This building does have this added benefit of being able to provide different services and more services too. And we're very much understanding that the current building has been outgrown. We've worked with the planning officer and with Highways to tweak our original scheme so that we could provide something that was very much in line and therefore supported. I'd like to thank you for your efforts with that as well. It's really quite refreshing to to work with a planning officer in that way. The application includes for widening of the entranceway and creation of the visibility displays. And we know that Highways have confirmed that there are no safety issues with the submitted proposals. Highways have also confirmed that they're quite happy with the parking provision. Arjan paid for quite an expensive parking survey to be done, which you've possibly seen with the application pack, and that showed fairly substantial parking available on the streets during the days as well when people are out at work. This property really will provide a long-term dental solution for the local population, allow for better treatments, and we're pleased to have a recommendation for approval.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? No. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so at this point, are there any points that the officers wish to come back on?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was just going to say that the change of use of 72, that is not part of this application, so we can't control what the existing dental surgery will become. The advertising sign, that would be part of if dentists wish to put up a new sign, that would be part of a separate application. That's not, as the resident said, that's not part of this application. And another application would be needed for any advertising consent. Yeah, I think that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We now move to debating the application. Who would like to start? Councillor Cartwright.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The business has been where it is at 72 for a number of years. All it is moving 2 houses down. I'm not sure that there's a great big difference in that. We keep hearing about, you know, we need medical facilities when we're expanding everywhere, and I don't understand why people would not want this that's basically already there, only improved. Is my thoughts on it. So, what about somebody else?
Councillor Rainbird.
I believe the more of the concern, Adrian, is about the number of surgery rooms being increased, therefore the potential of staff members increased, the potential increase of members of the public there, and obviously that comes with it is parking. But like they've said, there's only 5 practitioners at a time, and like the resident said, it's not a busy office. With maybe potentially, well, again, like there's potential of five residents and 5 surgeries, so you're talking a potential of 10 people at a time. So I think that's what, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what most people are concerned about.
Yeah, I think in terms of the staff, I don't think that's increasing as such. But also, because we did the site visit on Tuesday, we can actually compare the 2 properties, and you can physically see that there is actually more room in the newer property at the front for parking than there is with the existing property, which also has a flat above it and the tenants which are already residing there. So they have their own vehicles which occupy the spaces within the car park as well. So there's even less for customers. So this looks to be more beneficial for the new property.
As a more improvement, as in,
Yeah, greater improvement, yeah. Yeah, so potential for, like I say, more room. Any further questions? Any debating that? Councillor Cartwright.
Can't hear much in the way of objections, so in that case, I propose that we accept the officer recommendations.
Okay, are there any seconders? Councillor McMurtry. Will you summarise?
Thank you, Chair. It's proposed by Councillor Cartwright and seconded by Councillor McMurtry that officer's advice is followed and that the application is approved in accordance with the recommendation and the conditions set out in the report. Thank you, Chair. To the vote.
Okay, can we see hands in favour of the motion? Those against? Abstentions? 2. That's carried. Okay, thank you. We now move on to item 9, land east of Hazelwood, Silverstone. I'll now hand over to the case officer, Ben Parvin, to begin the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd just like to draw members' attention to the committee addendum, which outlines an error in the committee report for this item. The stated depth of the proposed pond at paragraph 7.14 is incorrect. Just for clarity, the depth of the proposed pond would be approximately 0.3 metres to 0.7 metres as stated on the submitted drainage technical note. This application is before committee because it is a major planning application. The application relates to a site located adjacent to the eastern boundary of the hamlet of West End, which forms part of the village of Silverstone, as outlined in red on the site location plan on the screen. This is an aerial view of the site, which just highlights the site's surroundings. The site is bordered to the north, east and south by fields, and to the west, the site is bordered by residential properties. A public right-of-way is situated in the north of the site, running east to west. The site itself has historically been used as a paddock for horses. However, in recent years, it has not been in active use. So moving on to photos of the site. The photo on the left is taken from the north of the site, looking south, with tree planting clearly visible. The photo on the right was taken in the east of the site, looking west, with neighbouring properties visible along the site's western boundary. These are two further photos. The photo on the left is taken from the south of the site, looking north, and the photo on the right is taken from the west of the site, looking east. Both photos show further planting and other landscaping. Then the last two photos show the public right-of-way, which crosses the north of the site. The photo on the left is looking to the west, and the photo on the right is looking to the east. This application seeks part retrospective planning permission to change the use of an existing paddock to an area of enhancement and rewilding. Elements of the proposal have begun to be implemented on the site, including the planting of trees and other vegetation. So this is the proposed landscape master plan. What it shows is that in the north of the site, it's proposed to move the existing fencing which runs along the public right-of-way in order to ensure that the legal alignment of the public right-of-way is accessible. Significant sections of the site would also be planted with trees to create new woodland areas, and likewise areas of the site would also see wildflower planting to create meadows. A modest wildlife pond is also proposed in the south of the site, as is a small storage shed. Planning officers have carefully considered the impacts of the proposed development, and whilst it would be located within the open countryside, the land use would not give rise to an unacceptable impact, whilst also resulting in a significant biodiversity enhancement. Furthermore, the proposed development would be in keeping with the surrounding area and would be acceptable in relation to all other relevant matters. Therefore, planning officers recommend that the application is approved, subject to conditions and informatives. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so are there any questions for?
Yeah, I'm just confused. I mean, we're being asked to permission to put countryside in the countryside. In what sense is this a major application?
So the reason it's a major application is due to the site area. Essentially, it's over a hectare, and if a site area is over a hectare, then it's a major planning application.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just going to let Democratic Services.
Through you, Chair, there are obviously thresholds set out in our constitution as to what necessitates referral to planning committee or not. So as per the requirements of our constitution, that's why this is before us, purely due to the site area. Chair.
Councillor Breeze.
Thank you. What's the change of use that's gone on here? I understand they've made a planning application, but it seems it was a paddock. So do you have to have planning permission to plant trees on this sort of scale, or why does it need planning permission?
Yes, so essentially there's two reasons. So along with the planting, there's also earthworks for the landscaping, and the pond as well, which require permission, and then the land use as well would be different to its use as a paddock.
So if I hire a tractor and shift some land, some soil around in the field behind my house, and it fills up with water, I need planning permission. Didn't know that.
Not necessarily. I mean, in this case, a planning application has been received.
Yeah. So we'll take the money.
And yeah, I think we take the view that the works do require planning permission, although admittedly, yeah, I think we do acknowledge that, yeah, it's obviously different to planning applications that are generally before the planning committee.
Just about general education. Thank you.
Councillor Smith?
Sorry, I was jumping the gun to the
Oh,
debate.
okay, no problem. Okay, any further questions or? Okay, as there are no speakers, will you go straight into, oh, you want to ask a question yet? Councillor Rainbird?
Well, if there's no objections to the actual planning application, then I can't
Move
see
to
what
propose. Yep.
can't be proposed for approval with officer's recommendation.
Okay, any seconders? Yeah, okay, councillor Tarbell. Wish to summarise?
Thank you, Chair. It's proposed by Councillor Rainbird and seconded by Councillor Tarbin that officer's advice is as followed. The application is approved, subject to the conditions set out in the report. Over to you, Chair, for the vote.
Okay, can we see hands in favour of the proposal? That's unanimous. Okay, thank you. We now move on to item 10, which is Woodton Park School, Northampton. I'll now hand over to Case Officer Chris Bates to begin the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. So this application is at Wootton Park School. It's for the retention of a modular classroom building on a permanent basis. The oval floor space constitutes major development and therefore must be brought to the planning committee under the Constitution. Let's go back. Not too far forward. So the modular school park, the modular building and the associated car park and access is shown in red with the remainder of the land and the school's ownership in blue. The main school campus is to the north of the site with playing fields and the open space in between, and the modular building is to the south. In terms of the relevant planning history, the original permission was, for a temporary 3-year period was granted in July 2016 by Northamptonshire County Council. This was then extended for a further 3 years in 2019 up to March 2021. The building, although the building has been in continuous use since its inception, it's been operated with the benefit of lawful planning permission since March 2021. Also relevant is the redevelopment of the main school in 2018, which now provides a state-of-the-art education facility. So here's the elevations of the modular building. It's 2 stories in height, although it has roof access for maintenance purposes. And then the floor plans, this shows the amount of classroom space provided in the building. So this photo from 2015 shows how the site was before the modular building. Quite importantly is the car park here, which is already in use. So whilst the car park is still there, it was obviously there before the modular building came into use. So some site photos. Here's the access to the site off the road, top of the head. Here's the car park and the building in the background. Here is the entrance to the school. And then here is the one side elevation and the rear elevation with the playground also shown. And here is the site from the modular building towards the school campus to the north. And you can see the green space and sports playing fields in between. Owing to the overwhelming local demand and shortfall for education teaching facilities, it was offered a recommendation that the application is approved and the modular building retained on a permanent basis. However, as officers are recommending approval against Sports England's statutory objection, then the application shall be referred to the Secretary of State via the National Planning Casework Unit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? No? Okay. As there are no speakers, We'll move to debates. If anyone wishes to make a start, councillor Cartwright.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, obviously this is needed as a sixth form block. It's been there a while, and they clearly need the classroom facilities. I don't see an issue with this unless anybody else can.
Sorry, to you, Joe. It's sad, isn't it, that as it's stated in the report, that it's impacting on the sports fields and sports facilities, but there's not much we can do about that, I suppose.
Okay.
Yeah, in that-
Councillor
in
Cartwright.
that case, if no one's got any real objections to, then I'll go with the officer's recommendation. and propose
Any
that.
seconders? Councillor McMurtry. Okay. Over to you to summarise.
Thank you, Chair. It's proposed by councillor Cartwright and seconded by councillor McMurtry that the officer's advice be accepted. The proposal be approved in accordance with the conditions as set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I see hands in favour of the proposal? I think that's unanimous. Thank you. We now move on to item 13, urgent business. There are no items of urgent business, and our next meeting will be held on Thursday, the 19th of February at 1 Angel Square, Northampton. Thank you.